Okay, so welcome officially to the second PD in our Acceleration Roadmap for Leaders series. Today, we'll be focusing our time on how to establish a sense of belonging and partnership for students and families. And before we do that, we'd like to take a moment just to introduce ourselves. My name is Margaret Bruce, and I'm a Senior Manager of Academics and ELA here at TNTP. I am coming your way from upstate New York in the Capital District outside of Albany, and I'm really looking forward to doing this work alongside you all today. Thank you again for being here, and I'm going to hand it over to my co-facilitator, Versha.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Versha Munshi South. I am a leadership coach at TNTP, and I'm based in Stamford, Connecticut. I just drove to Maine this past week, so I drove through a lot of Massachusetts, and I'm excited to see all these districts that now sound familiar. And I'll pass it over to Tabitha.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Tabitha. I'm the director on the consulting team here at TNTP. It's nice to see you all. And I think we're ready to go ahead and get started.
Great, thank you for those introductions. Here are our norms for today. Please take a minute to read through these independently and then identify one norm you would like to keep top of mind as we move through our session, and share that norm out in the chat for us. Go ahead and read through them and share your focus norm in the chat. Thanks, Laura, for getting us started. Practice, not perfection. Joy and humor, the name of the game, Doug. Appreciate that. Sarah, curiosity. Know better, do better. Absolutely. Community. Karen, Kristen, Michelle, thank you so much for these. So now that we've self-selected our own kind of focus norm, just keep that in your back pocket as we move through our time together today. One point to note as well that there isn't a designated break. So if you do need to take a break, of course, feel free, and you can turn your camera off at that time to indicate you're away from your computer. We do ask, however, that if you need to take a break, to try not to do so during breakout rooms so that we can maximize our time together and not leave your breakout room colleagues without a partner. So go ahead and just show me a thumbs up if these norms work for you today. Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks, Kristen. Thanks, Federico. Appreciate that. Terrific. So now I'm going to hand the mic over to Versha.
Hi again, everyone. So wanted to just officially welcome you again, and really just share and remind you that you've already done what I think is sometimes the hardest part, which is you've taken this time for yourself. You've committed to coming this session at the end of the day, hopefully towards the end of your day. And so I would just encourage you all to do what you can to stay engaged, turn off the dings and allow yourself to have this time to really plan for this coming school year. So very quickly, I wanted to give you a little background on TNTP in case you're not familiar with our organization. We do see some familiar faces, so I know that some of you have come to some of our sessions earlier this summer, which is wonderful. So we were founded in 1997 by teachers who believed that all students deserved great teaching, with a particular focus on equity for students who have been historically and systematically underserved by school systems. Now, today our work focuses on three areas: rigorous academics, talented people, and supportive environments. We offer support, really a range of support, from strategic advice to multi-year execution. We work with school districts, we work with charter networks, and of course, we work with DESE. If you have not been familiar with our roadmaps yet, just to give you a little background about how those came to be, TNTP and DESE have worked together on several teacher initiatives, such as teacher diversification and also the kaleidoscope work with deeper learning. To develop these roadmaps, we really took some time to hear from educators, from school and district leaders, from students, from community members, to create all across the Commonwealth, to create roadmaps that were really focused and aligned on the unique needs of students across this Commonwealth, and also aligned with existing tools and resources that are currently provided by DESE. Now, today's PD is centered on establishing a sense of belonging for students and families. Following today's PD, we will continue in our series. So some of you may have come to some of our sessions earlier this summer, and so there were 5 sessions, and now those sessions have started over again. So this is now the second time we're offering this session, which is establishing a sense of belonging. And you can see how these will continue for the blue sessions 3, 4, and 5 over the next few weeks. So the acceleration roadmap is a tool that exists in 2 forms, and hopefully you've had a chance to sort of dig into those already. There's a teacher version and there's a school leader edition. If you have educators that you're in contact with this summer, please encourage them to attend our educator focus sessions that will take place in August that are focused on the educator roadmap. But essentially, both roadmaps are designed to provide a focused and phased approach to supporting students in this coming school year, the 21-22 school year. But we really believe that this coming school year will lay the foundation for accelerated learning over the next several years. What you'll find in the roadmap are phases that are akin to what we would see in a normal school year. So you'll see diagnosing and planning the current state, launching the school year, monitoring progress, and of course, reflecting along the way. We know that this year is not going to be typical in many ways, but we also know that we're not completely reinventing the wheel. So what you'll find is this learning acceleration approach that's outlined in the roadmaps will support bringing your students into grade level instruction and supporting their well-being. You'll find that we'll discuss some things here that you already do, things that you've seen done, things that you wanted to do, that you've been meaning to try, but maybe haven't yet prioritized. Maybe these were things that you were thinking about before the pandemic. So in this planning phase, we'll help you prioritize what's most important for your students in your school and your classroom in order to make accelerated learning a reality. So let's start by taking a pulse on where we are in terms of a common understanding of accelerated learning. So go ahead and take a moment and chat in the Zoom chat 1 or 2 words or a phrase that you associate with accelerated learning. 1 or 2 words or a phrase that you associate with accelerated learning. And thank you for getting us started. We've already got a lot in the chat, just in time, moving forward, grade level material, differentiation, absolutely, making progress, grade level content, yep, scaffolded learning. So we'll be talking about a lot of these things. Not remediation, moving forward with the curriculum. Yes, amazing ideas here. And certainly it seems like at least some of you have started to really dig into the roadmap, which hopefully has been supportive as you've been planning this summer. Real-time support, I love that. Supporting all learners. Yeah, these are wonderful. So continue to consider how you define accelerated learning. And as you read in the pre-work, acceleration is not just about going through the curriculum at a faster pace. It's actually about providing students with just-in-time supports that will allow them to access their grade level content. So in other words, if a student hasn't mastered the earlier skills that are required to complete a grade appropriate assignment, student receives just-in-time support, which gives the student just the right amount of help to move forward right when they need that help through scaffolds and coordinated interventions. And we contrast that with remediation, which is putting students in below grade level content to fill in all their previous gaps. And that has been a typical approach for remediation, providing work better suited for earlier grades. But we know that that approach to remediation won't come close to catching students up and will likely compound the problem. If you're familiar with some of TNTP's other work, you may have seen in the opportunity myth, we found that this strategy of intensive remediation practically guarantees that students will lose more academic ground and also reinforces misguided beliefs that some students can't ever do grade level work. And as you can imagine, or as you've likely seen in your schools or in districts or in previous experiences, the students that tend to get stuck in this vicious cycle are disproportionately the most vulnerable. Students of color, students from low-income families, students with special needs. And so with remediation, these specific groups of students often do not get the opportunity to access grade level content that would support with unfinished learning and staying on grade level. So let's dig into the guide a little bit. Again, hopefully you've had a chance to take a look, but we wanted to point out a few areas that will help you in accessing the guide. So on page 8, you'll find this broad overview, and it's really a snapshot of the key action steps for the school year. Now, it's essentially you use this tool. As you use this tool, you're considering your own context. So we recognize that leaders may already, especially at this point in the middle of July, you may already have a plan in place for some or even all of the action steps that are listed in the document. Also keep in mind that the timeframes in the document, the phases are approximate, and they're designed to illustrate when certain key actions may be most effective, but you should certainly adapt the suggested dates to fit your own local context. And what we say is that although all 3 priorities that are listed in the roadmap are critical, today's work is rooted in the first priority, which is all about cultivating a sense of belonging. In order to engage students and their families as authentic partners, we want to approach engagement with a focus on equity. And that means that 1, we're establishing meaningful engagement activities and systems that do not characterize or treat specific parent groups as deficient in their level of engagement or their approach to education. We also want to acknowledge and navigate cultural differences through communication, humility, and sensitivity. And you will see those concepts woven through our session today.
Thanks, Versha. So let's go ahead and take a look at our objectives for our time together this afternoon. I'd like to ask Thelma here at TNTP to read our first 2 objectives aloud and Greg to read our second 2, if you don't mind.
Sure. Sorry, I'm on the wrong mode. Let me get it to full screen. Sorry about that. The first objective, create a plan for collecting and examining available data regarding student attendance and students and families' feelings of belonging. And the second one, to identify a variety of 360-degree communication strategies to promote attendance and fostering belonging,
Set a specific school culture goal with an eye towards racial equity. Identify the key barriers to change and brainstorm proactive solutions to address the barriers.
Thank you so much, Thelma, and thank you, Greg, for taking a minute to read those aloud. Now that we've had a chance to hear them and to read them, go ahead and share in the chat a word or phrase that you would really like to focus in on or learn more about during our time together today. Thank you, Doug. Belonging, absolutely. .360 communication strategies, absolutely. Racial equity. Setting a specific school culture goal, terrific. Thank you, Molly. Thanks, Sarah. Addressing barriers. Thank you so much for taking a minute to review these objectives, digest them a little bit, and then turn them into the chat. So we're going to go ahead and kick off with our first objective here. Create a plan for collecting and examining available data regarding student attendance and students and families' feelings of belonging. In order to create a plan for collecting and examining available data regarding student attendance and students and families' feelings of belonging, we must start by examining whose voice is centered in the conversation around belonging and who has been invited to the table to discuss and reflect on these issues. So let's frame our thinking going into the next few slides by discussing a critical issue to fostering relationships, which is addressing the issue of student attendance through the lens of advancing racial and socioeconomic equity. In order to do this work, let's begin by thinking about the question on the slide here. And I'd actually like to ask Kristen, if you're available, to come to the mic and read it aloud for us.
I can read it.
Thank you.
How can we incorporate the needs of students and families, especially those affected most by the pandemic, and the voices of teachers and leaders into structures and decisions as we head into next year?
Thank you so much, Tabitha. So take a moment to reflect on this question. What comes to mind when you read this question? please go ahead and share your initial thinking in the chat, or if you have an idea that's jumped right out to you, go ahead and put your name in the chat and we can come and hear your thinking there. Thanks, Melissa. Common vision and vocabulary, strategies to promote attendance. Absolutely. Thanks, Doug. Thanks, Sue. Ask families what their needs are. Shauna, I'm not sure if you'd like to come off mute and tell us a little bit more about feedback cycles.
No pressure. Yeah, I think collecting feedback is really important and making it quick and accessible. One piece of feedback that I got from families is that sometimes the surveys are too long and they only have a minute or two to answer them. So getting right to what we want and then incorporating it and telling them how we're going to incorporate it via Class Dojo or some type of like quick tool for them. And then with teachers, the same thing. I know that surveys were, I don't know about you guys, but in our school, we were kind of surveyed out, but they were really helpful as we made crucial decisions for the upcoming school year.
Shauna, thank you so much for allowing me to hand you that mic really quickly. I appreciate it. And no pressure, but you absolutely nailed the response. And I have heard from many stakeholders that being surveyed out is definitely a trend. So really focusing in on what is that one need and then what's the immediate next step. So thank you for lifting that up. I appreciate it. And looks like there's some love coming your way in the chat as well. So thank you for that. So we need to ensure that all family members and all stakeholders have a seat at the table this year. And by being intentional now and in our planning in August and early September, we can ensure that we're actively including all community members and that setting that collaborative tone and vision for this next school year so that we'll be well positioned on our way to establishing belonging for all. And so with that said, the pandemic, as we know, has exacerbated longstanding racial and socioeconomic inequities in our school systems. And as a result, many families have remained underrepresented. And in some cases, a need to repair trust has been established. Families must be critical partners as we return to full-time in-person learning. And we must all hold that mirror up and question whether there's been adequate inclusionary measures taken to ensure that every parent and family has a voice in this critical planning process moving forward. Thanks, Melissa. Just a note on the feedback. Just if we could all make sure that we're muted to ensure the feedback is diminished. Thank you for flagging that. Appreciate it. Okay, so just a quick show of hands or a thumbs up. If COVID has negatively impacted your attendance or enrollment in your school or district. Okay, some head nods. Thanks, Shauna. Thanks, Brenda. Yep, see you, Jennifer. See you, Mark, Mary. Yep, so it looks like pretty much across the board, for many of us, it has. But regardless if there's data on that, COVID has absolutely affected the way that all of us show up in the world and has created a variety of barriers for how our children and young people attend schools, and also how families are able to support them in doing so. Donna, can you please read the latter two bullet points on this slide for us?
A 15-year study of 400 Chicago schools found that schools with strong family and community ties, regardless of any other factors, were 4 times more likely to improve in reading and 10 times more likely to improve in math. In a study of Title I schools, teachers who were especially active in engaging parents and sharing resources to support learning at home saw larger gains in student achievement, regardless of other factors.
Donna, thank you so much. Appreciate you. So research has shown us that we know that when schools and districts work in partnership with families and communities, student achievement also increases. Whoa. Specifically, increased family engagement is linked to improved school readiness, higher grades, higher test scores, better attendance, and fewer tardies. And on the flip side, family engagement is also tied to decreased suspension and expulsion rates and the increased likelihood of high school graduation. But of course, the big question is, how do we get there? We're at a critical juncture in many ways as we face, yet again, an unprecedented school year. One way that we can plan to bolster attendance is through thinking about the supports we offer through a range, beginning with foundational supports, which support the entire student body, and working our way up to highly specific supports or intense interventions for students who need that increased support. Of course, each school will have some distinct measures and forms of outreach that are unique to your population. Let's go ahead and look on the next slide at a few examples. We can see here how those tiered strategies can be explained. Please take the next 30 seconds to review some of these strategies and put in the chat 1 or 2 that you would really like to try or prioritize, thinking about planning and family input for this summer. So take a moment to read through and select one strategy you would like to try for the first time or reprioritize in terms of planning for next year. Doug, appreciate the chat frequency. Absolutely. Family training, personalized communication, what a difference that can make. Absolutely. Yes, Mary Jo, see you. Goal setting talks, weekly data sharing folders, parent training, thanks Ethel. Positive phone calls home. Personalized communication. So it looks like there's a few trends across the board as well. Thank you for taking a moment to think about 1 or 2 that you would like to either try for the first time or focus in on. And just keep that either in your note catcher or in your back pocket as we move forward into our first breakout activity. So we can go ahead and transition into our first breakout activity, which is going to be to create a plan for collecting and examining available data to foster a sense of belonging. In a moment, we'll have some planning time, but first I'd like to explain what we're going to do. Okay, your first step is going to be to pull up the leader self-assessment for priority 1 and the roadmap pages 9 and 10, which will also be in the chat. Our first step here is going to be to consider the data that you have regarding how families are feeling about the return to full-time in-person learning for next school year. The second step is going to be to use this data to create one next step to support families this summer as we transition back into school. If you do not yet have concrete data about your families, you can begin considering how you'll collect it. Before we go into breakout rooms, we're going to take 3 minutes on our own to begin reflecting and planning for these questions in your note catcher. We'll put the directions and the links to the resources in the chat as well. I'm here to answer any questions, but we'll begin breakouts in about 3 minutes. So just listen for my voice to bring us back together. And while you're having your work and reflection time, you can feel free to turn your camera off if that's how you work best. So go ahead and begin planning now, and we'll move into breakouts at about 31 after the hour. Very interested to learn more about the conversations that were had. So I would love to invite actually all of us to put your name in the chat if you have a goal that you would like to share out with the group, or that your group discussed a goal to share out with the group. Go ahead and put your name in the chat if you would like to share now. Thank you, Doug. Go ahead and kick us off.
Yeah, Mario, we didn't, as I think everybody saw, it came back pretty fast there.
Yes, indeed. Well, thank you for rolling with that and being flexible and nimble in terms of rejoining to the group. So I'm not sure if you have a goal you'd like to share out, or if we can just pass the mic to someone else.
You're on mute, Doug.
Okay, so let's go ahead and hear from, it looks like Deanna in the chat is willing to kick us off. And if you have a goal as well that you'd really like to share with us, we would love to hear it. And you can just put that in the chat now. But Deanna, kick us off, please.
Sure. We talked a good amount about celebrating everybody coming back and the importance of making everyone feel welcome. And you know, we know attendance is an issue, but I think it's really important to put forward that we're glad parents are back, recognizing all the work that they've done this past year, and having some kind of way to recognize that and acknowledge that, and in that also remind them the importance of attendance. So kind of, but keeping it real positive and celebratory.
Love that, Deanna. Thank you so much. Yes, absolutely. Never forgetting the work that families have been doing behind the scenes these past years. Absolutely. Thank you for that. And I would love to invite Erica from room 9 to the mic. I've heard that there was a great idea transpiring in your room. If you're willing to come to the mic.
Yeah, we were just discussing, I was just mentioning how a while back we had a parent drop-in center where parents who wanted to learn English could come in. And I was just saying, I would like to have something like that, but to teach parents how to navigate our Redeker system where they can access their child's grades and their teachers and missing work. We find that a lot of our parents don't know how to navigate that. So that would be something that I would like to see in the future.
Erica, thank you so much for lifting that out. Tech can be so challenging, as we all know, especially thinking about all of our families and parents and teaching them that directly, especially our multilingual families and our multilingual learners. So I appreciate that perspective and thank you for bringing it. I encourage everyone else to share your goal in the chat now so we can just be flooded with all of your brilliant ideas. And with that, we're going to move forward as those great responses come up by holding on to this key point, which is that authentic engagement is an essential practice for affirming students in their diverse identities. So thank you all for setting some goals around building those relationships for our students and families.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to our second objective, which some of you named is the thing that you really are looking to engage with today, identifying a variety of 360 communication strategies to implement to promote attendance and also to foster belonging. So just a quick thumbs up or thumbs down. Is 360 communication a term that you're familiar with? I see some nods, I see some thumbs down, I see some mixed. Okay, so for some of you, this will be new. For some of you, it might be reinforcing something that you've heard about before. But in either case, now that we've identified the need to strongly refocus on attendance, especially through the lens of driving racial equity, let's begin our discussion on 360 communication by first naming that when we cultivate authentic community engagement, we view family and parents and community members as partners in our process. And with that, we can really make a commitment to listening first. We all have expertise in our field of education, but we know that community members and families are the neighborhood experts. And we want to make sure that we're working collaboratively. So for us to really create long-term impact in communities, our work needs to be done with the community and not to the community. And that especially is true through the lens of racial equity. We need to ensure that we're cultivating a vision that includes all voices, all stakeholders at the table. So here's a way of thinking about 360 communication and how it sits as we think of other forms of communication. So when we think about one-way communication, that is a lot of what districts were focused on this past school year, which is clarity of communication, making sure everyone knew, here's when you come to school, here's when you don't come to school, here's when you need to wear a mask, right? Making sure that families and students had the information. That was one-way communication, and that's always important. We also can think about two-way communication, which is when the district or school shares information and families respond to say, yes, I got it, no, I didn't get it. It might be a survey and they might be giving feedback. That would be a two-way communication loop. Now, when we think about, and again, there are times when that's what you want to do. That's the most appropriate form of communication. But we can also start thinking about 360 communication. And that's really a space where families and communities are involved in what we call a healthy feedback loop. And you can see in this feedback loop, there's a cycle of cultivating strong relationships, seeking feedback, listening and learning, taking action, and then sharing back. And we're going to take a closer look at this on the next slide. So when you look at 360 communication in the context of one-way communication and two-way communication, what do you think a benefit of 360 communication would be? So go ahead and start chatting some responses. Why might 360 communication be beneficial? Thanks for getting us started, Jessica. It's ongoing, it's responsive. Feedback loops, absolutely. It's ongoing. Facilitates continuous improvement. And yes, establishes a sense of belonging, right? Bringing us back to the focus of today's session. Centering families, being proactive. Yes, these are amazing. Small and big decisions, that's a big one, right? We make many, many decisions at the school and district level. There's lots of ways that we want to make sure that we have all stakeholders at the table. Shared solutions, absolutely. These are wonderful ideas. And so let's take a look at 360 communication a little bit more. And as some of you already named, this is really a way that we engage and lift up all stakeholders in the student experience. So there's some best practices for engaging in authentic community engagement. And 360 communication. We want to think about creating or utilizing practices that promote equal partnerships. So it's about purpose, not power. And we want to work with families as a team and ensure that we're really leveraging their expertise. We want to make sure that families know how to access school communications and they have a way to provide input. We want to make sure that we're grounding communication in academic outcomes, and we're putting ourselves in parents' shoes. I know that my perspective as a teacher and as a school administrator certainly changed once I became a parent, and then changed again once I became a parent of school-age kids, and then more recently has changed again as both of my kids are going into middle school. So that perspective and understanding what families care about and what their concerns are is so essential, and we can't make assumptions there. We need to really engage with them and find out what folks are talking about and what their experience is like. So we've identified, and best practice tells us that culturally sustaining schools enhance student experience and outcomes. And so we want to connect 360 communication to another document that you may have seen, which is the Massachusetts Standards and Indicators for Effective Teaching Practice. And that really outlines expectations for teachers across the Commonwealth, and it helps us identify how we can do this work of culturally sustaining schools. So we're going to get into another breakout group and look at how we can explore this a little bit more thoroughly. So as we discussed, we're working towards a culturally responsive environment, and that's critical to supporting students, families, and enacting a school culture that embodies anti-racism. So with that understanding, let's reflect on this first question. How does 360 communication establish a sense of belonging? So I ask you to just take a couple of minutes and jot down some responses in your note catcher just to this first question. How does 360 communication support establishing a sense of belonging? And feel free if you have any responses you want to put in the chat. Thanks, Vanessa, for getting us started. Every voice matters. Yes. And I know we heard earlier in the session, I think it was Shauna who was talking about being surveyed out, over surveying. 360 communication also really supports families and stakeholders in seeing that, it's not just that we're sending home survey after survey, but there is something that we're doing with that data. We're turning it back around. We may not share out, changes that are related to every single survey question, but being mindful of, families and stakeholders are much more likely to do your survey if they've seen how the survey data and feedback have impacted decision making. So now we're going to really do some work on creating a 360 communication strategy for maintaining and building communication with families related to returning in-person learning. So really wanting to think about what strategies can spiral throughout the school year. So we know there's some times of the year that we really, consistently ask for feedback, maybe over the summer and then right at the beginning of the year, in the middle of the year and the end of the year. But how can we spiral these strategies throughout the year so that, one, we're not waiting so long between outreach efforts and communication efforts, and two, that we are really responding to that data in real time and not sort of waiting for those big data gathering points at just a few times in the school year. So really consider what kind of strategies could spiral throughout the school year. And we're going to move into breakouts in a minute to have the opportunity to discuss those with others and also, hear some new ideas. Because really what we know is that the best ideas for all of these things are from all of you really sharing with each other. So whenever we're ready, we can move into breakouts. All right, we'll give everyone a few seconds to get back. Okay, I think we just need a couple more people and then we'll keep moving. Okay, well, welcome back. Hopefully you're able to share some wonderful ideas and get some ideas too. I know I heard some really innovative things that are happening in districts and real thought being put into what would be most effective going into this school year. So we're going to call on a few people to share that I've heard from my colleagues would be supportive of really bringing some new ideas to the group. So I'm going to ask Jessica S. from group 10, would you mind sharing about student-led activities?
Sure. So we, prior to the pandemic, had been doing, open houses and, events that welcomed families in. And often in our district, we were, as teachers, sitting there by ourselves or with a very, very small group of family members that came to participate. And when we switched to student-led conferences, we saw an enormous increase in the participation. We went from very little participation in the events to nearly 100%. And so I think when you bring students into the fold and you have them be the reason why families are there, that really is something that gets that 360 communication going.
I love that. Thank you so much. And can we hear from Robert, Robert sharing specifically about how to communicate back out to the community?
Yeah, so we were talking about communicating back out to the community, and one of the things in our district, historically, we haven't had high participation from the community in our school committee meetings or any interest from the community in attending school committee meetings when they were in person. We would usually have very few community attendees. And because those meetings during the pandemic were recorded and, well, they were always recorded, but they were presented live virtually, I think they were a lot more accessible, and we had a lot more participation and interest from the community of parents and families. And that allowed us to and really capitalize on that as a effective form of communication, where we could then share information back out to the community through school committee meetings and feel like it was being heard either live or people were accessing the recordings of the school committee meetings virtually.
Love that. Thank you, Robert. I know I've been an avid watcher of our Board of Ed meetings here for that same reason, because we can now watch them, for better or for worse, we can watch them on Zoom now. I'd love to hear from Michelle, if you're able to share about your Friendly Friday calls.
Sure. So I have a Google form that I've sent to teachers, and I send it out to staff every Thursday, just sort of as a reminder. And it's just a quick Google form. They put the child's name and the reason for the good phone call home. And then Friday afternoon, I spend my time just calling families, and the parents just absolutely love it. And it's something that families have really sort of enjoyed, because I've been able to call a lot of families that I typically call for not so positive reasons. And so it's just gone a long way, and it's really easy for everybody.
Thank you, Michelle. And that's great. You know, it's great for families who maybe don't get those positive phone calls as often, and more often maybe get some of the disciplinary calls. But it's also great for families who just don't often hear anything. You know, there's some kids who just are, you know, floating along, and we don't call one way or the other. So having that proactive approach can really build a lot of investment with families. So thank you. I know there's so many great ideas. We're going to move us along and consider, and here we're really trying to bring these themes and topics from our session together. So I'm considering, now that we've spent some time on 360 communication, really thinking about how does 360 communication support establishing a sense of belonging? And what is a strategy that you will use to engage students, families, teachers, and community members? So we've already started kind of getting into these questions in the last slide, but if you're willing to hop off mute and share anything else with us, go ahead and chat the number 1 or the number 2 in the chat, and we will call on you to share some ideas. And while we're thinking about that, I was wondering, Les, do you mind coming off mute and sharing with us? I heard you talking about really thinking about purpose of communication. Would you mind sharing a little bit about what you were talking about in your group?
Well, there wasn't a whole lot more than that. It was that maybe quality of communication, it might be more important than frequency, and that we should be clear about what it is that we want to know and what it is that we want to share, and be open to understanding the same from our families. But that, you know, as been mentioned earlier, I think that the things that involve students often tend to resonate with families. So the more that we can build our communication around what kids are doing, and even put them in leadership positions, perhaps the more effective we'll be.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Les. Mark, would you mind sharing with us? It sounds like your district has a coordinated approach here.
Yeah, so we hired in each building, we hired several different teacher leaders, but one of them was an equity and family engagement teacher leader. And they'll be organizing, we're instituting No Place for Hate with in partnership with the ADL. And we're creating some, not only a monthly meeting for an equity committee that's district-wide, but in each one of the schools, they're creating monthly activities to engage families. And some of the activities, at least 3 of the activities, will be focused on equity and engaging in an equity dialogue. So we're looking forward to that, and again, working in partnership with the ADL.
Thank you so much, Mark. And I love that the idea of engaging with community partners, and also considering what can happen, going into the year, knowing that you're going to have events or opportunities that are already calendared out or scheduled, makes it a lot easier to then hold ourselves to it. I'm also seeing in the chat just fun things, virtual talent show and arts showcase. Those are really ways to engage families. And so much of our acceleration roadmap is about academics, which obviously is at the center of school, but also thinking about what are all the ways to leverage the strengths in the community and how those can come into play. So thank you for sharing those ideas. And now we're going to move to our final objective, which is identifying the key barriers to change and brainstorming proactive solutions to addressing those barriers. So we just covered a lot of ground. And while many of these items may be in place in your current setting, Some may require changes. And this year there was really no shortage of changes and that we all had to sort of quickly adapt to and get people on board with and gather investment. So certainly this concept of change being overwhelming and disorienting is not new. One thing that hopefully will feel a little bit different or maybe very different from where we were at this time last year is we have a little bit more certainty about hopefully what this school year is going to look like. And that allows us to really plan for some things that we were planning for the first time last year. Thinking about, we had never had school with kids wearing masks before, as just one example. So there are some things that we know we can plan for going into this year, even though we will also acknowledge that we are still living in a time with a lot of ambiguity. And so let's pause to take a moment and reflect and consider, when you think about your school community or district, and reflect on what we have discussed today, thinking about attendance, thinking about 360 communication, thinking about culturally sustaining schools, what element of that discussion is already strongly in place in your school or district, and what might require some more guidance and support? So go ahead and just jot down some notes for you in your note catcher, considering that what's already strongly in place in your school and what might require more guidance and support. I'll just give you a minute or two of some think time. So that was a quick moment, but thank you for taking that time to just reflect more broadly on how our PD is connecting to the strengths and areas to improve in your district. So as we move into this last activity, we're going to situate ourselves in what aspect of implementing these shifts or changes and how they might present barriers within your community and what we can do to support staff proactively. So this may be a way that you've seen leadership levers talked about before. There's lots of change management models and ways to really build investment in change. So one way to think about it is this need for leaders to systematize change. And these levers here impact teacher behaviors and then student outcomes. So let's consider these levers that are listed, starting with expectations. When we think about expectations, we want to consider, what are the precise expectations of adults? What will you communicate, particularly to educators? We also want to think about tools and structures. So what tools will adults need to meet the expectations? So if you want to implement 360 communication strategies, if you want to start having Friday positive calls, what are the tools that adults will need to meet those expectations? Certainly, we want to think about supports. What support or development do adults need to implement the system? Sometimes that is actual training, professional development. Many of you are probably already planning what summer professional development will look like for teachers. And we know that time fills up really quickly and goes by really quickly. So as you think about creating a sense of belonging and 360 communication, what are actual supports or developments that educators may need, or even your other leaders may need? And then our most important one, and the one that we never have enough of, is time. What time will adults need to learn, refine, whatever system it is that you're implementing? How could you adjust time? We found lots of ways this year of using technology, and sometimes technology can really support us in somehow finding some more time. So these levers can be implemented to help support changes within your school community. And we'd love for you to think about a challenge or a barrier that you've identified already, and consider which of these levers will be needed to support your team. And it may be all the levers, but really consider how you might use these levers to plan for any systems that you are looking to implement. So go ahead and jot down some ideas in your note catcher, and we'll have one last round of breakout groups to be able to share out which of these levers are you really focused on and how will they support you in addressing your barriers. So you can go ahead and jot down some thoughts, and we'll move us into breakouts for a little discussion.
Recording in
All right, welcome back, everybody. We need a few more seconds. Okay, yep, welcome back. Hopefully that felt like enough time to really get into those levers and start thinking about or continue thinking about what levers your school and your community really need focus on going into this school year. So let's consider a couple of questions here. One, what is a challenge that you've identified? And also, what lever did you select and how will you implement it? So again, feel free to drop one of the numbers in the chat if you're willing to share a challenge you've identified or a lever that you've selected. It's just enormously helpful for us to hear from each other and really know kind of what's out there, and also to just hear some fresh ideas. So we'd encourage you, if there's anything that you can share, go ahead and put either one or two in the chat or both. All right, Shauna, do you want to get us started?
Yeah, I just want to thank my group for being so transparent and helping me figure out what to do. The challenge that I identified is that expectations aren't necessarily clear. And sometimes I tend to just I'll just jump in and do it and I'll fix it. And that is exhausting. Like many of you are probably feeling exhausted after this last school year, and it isn't helping the team actually grow and develop and obtain the goal that we all set in the first place. So I need to go back to the drawing board and set up what is the expectation, what is the goal, what is the vision, and how can we, not me, make it happen on a day-to-day basis.
Yes, I love that, Shauna. Everything about it, we, not me, all of it. How can you get others to be the messengers and ambassadors for the work? Absolutely, thank you. And Doug, I noticed that you said early and often, and I think that's a huge one too, because a lot of times we do a lot of this messaging in the beginning of the school year, and then we just assume people remember it all year. And sometimes we need to iterate and change some things. We may not, if there's one thing we learned, particularly, last spring, was that we can change things and, move from in-person to virtual, and, it wasn't perfect, but we can learn to do things really quickly, and our teachers can too. So what does that mean for being able to use 360 communication and really iterate on the work? But also, I love that often, because there's a lot of information coming in at the beginning of the year. And so we can't count on everyone to just remember the vision, the expectations, the supports. Those school years long, so it doesn't always carry us through the whole year. So thank you for those of you who shared, Shauna, for sharing out loud, and also those who shared in the chat, and all of you for being so open in your breakout groups and really allowing us for some vulnerability, because we are all doing this work together. So Margaret, I'll pass it back to you to close us out.
Thank you, Versha, and thank you everyone in breakouts and here this afternoon for your great thinking and, like Versha said, your vulnerability. So here we are at the end of our session. We've discussed a myriad of opportunities to establish belonging in our school community in a short 90 minutes. And so with that, we would love to invite you to our upcoming professional development sessions. Our next one is actually on Wednesday. So please do check out the chat here today for the link to sign up for our other sessions. And we would really love to see you back again and keep these conversations going and continue learning from each other in service of our students and families. And of course, please reach out to us with any questions that you might have. Our emails are here on the slide, and we're more than happy to support you as needed with our contact info on the slide as well. Thank you so, so much for your time. Please let us know what was helpful today, what questions remain, what changes you would like to see next time in the survey in the chat. I hope we're not all too surveyed out here, but your feedback is invaluable to us. We do read it very closely and implement as much change as possible. Thank you all so much for your time. We're here to answer any questions that you might have. In the meantime, have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll hope to see you again soon.
And we're still on for a few minutes, so if anyone has any questions, feel free to come off mute and take advantage of us.